Very beginning, Resident Evil has been one of my favorite series, even though for the longest time I'd only ever played one of the games. My father had a PlayStation 2, and at some point he bought a copy of Resident Evil 4 that I promptly ran into the ground. I still have that old disc, even though the original case is long gone and it always crashes when I try to get past the first village fight. It's a very important game to me, as my first real introduction to the wide world of adventure and excitement that video games could offer me. This makes it all the stranger that, up until very recently, I hadn't played a single other game in the series. I think it had to do with the fact that most of the other games were considered true horror, and I'm a bit of a wimp. But that all changed with the remake of RE2, which surpassed 4 and became my favorite Resident Evil game of all time. So I dove deeper into the series, and have now played almost every single mainline game. Well, except for the first one. Calm down, calm down. I know, how could I have gone all this time without ever playing Resident Evil 1? It's honestly just because I couldn't wrap my head around the fixed camera angles and tank controls. I tried to start the remake of 1 a year or so ago, but never got past the first zombie encounter. I've also never played RE0 for the same reasons, but from what I've heard, I'm not missing out on much. Anyway, back to the first game. I've tried to watch full reviews before, just to see if it was worth pushing through to the end, but a problem I commonly see is that the people reviewing it seem to be blinded by their own nostalgia for the game. So I thought it might make it a little bit easier to get through if I took notes as I played and made this little video. So here we are. As a disclaimer, I will be playing the original Resident Evil Director's Cut on my PlayStation Classic, and I'll also be spoiling the entire game. So if you haven't played it yet, then you have been warned. When starting a new game, you're first presented with a choice. You can either play as Jill Valentine or Chris Redfield. Now, from what I've heard, the stories are slightly different and some of the items are mixed up, but other than that, there's not much of a difference. And I believe that unlike later games such as Resident Evil 2 and 3, there is barely any crossover between the two campaigns. You won't see the other character at all unless you play their route. Well, anyway, for this playthrough, I'll be going through as Jill, because I already know how Chris gets way too much screen time later on, and I don't feel like dealing with this bullshit. After that, we're treated to this lovely live-action cutscene showing something? Why is this so dark? What's even going on? From what I can gather, Jill and her team of badass Special Forces officers are attacked by dogs and are forced to retreat into a nearby mansion that appears to be empty. Or is it? Now, something I need to address before I go any farther is how surprisingly great this game looks. Well, at least the backgrounds, and of course, for the times. I mean, it's incomparable with the stuff of today, but that's to be expected for a PlayStation 1 game. The backgrounds do a great job of feeling tangible, like somewhere I could actually imagine going to. The character models, on the other hand, sheesh. Why does Jill's nose take up half her face? And Barry's beard just looks like he spilled brown paint on his chin. I understand limits of the time and all that, but just look how much better Jill's model is just 2 games later on the same console. Anyway, back to the story. As I was saying, we made it safely to the abandoned mansion, with only 2 of our squad mates. Albert Wesker, who is totally not evil, guys, please you can trust me, and Barry Burton. Now, as I said, Wesker is a good dude, totally not evil or trying to betray us. Just ignore the fact that he disappears without a trace in a foreign location full of monsters the freaking second that we turn our backs to him.
Wesker! Help me look for him, Jill.
I'm sure he'll be fine. Now, Barry, on the other hand, he is a true Chad. He's cool, he's powerful, he saved my ass on multiple occasions, and he's witty.
What is it?
Actually, time for another tangent. Something that's commonly criticized, well, maybe not even criticized as much as made fun of in these games, is the dialogue and voice acting, especially this line.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
But I just don't get it. This line makes sense. It's a little cheesy, sure, but this is a 90s horror action game. I'm not expecting frickin' Shakespeare. And the line makes sense. Jill was about to be squished between the ceiling and the floor. If I'm eating a bologna sandwich, that's a piece of bologna squished between the pieces of bread. So a Squish Jill would be a Jill sandwich. Stop making fun of Barry for trying to lighten the mood after he just saved our ass. Okay, rant over. And I'll finally get back to the story. So I'm told not to go outside by Wesker before he just up and leaves, but the door doesn't seem to be locked, so let's check it out. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, I seriously wasn't ready for that. I'm not sure if it's just because I wouldn't expect them from a game like this, or if it's because they're so few and far between, but almost every single jump scare in this game was able to get me, even if it didn't look particularly scary. Or maybe I'm just a wuss. After that near heart attack, I follow Barry through a main door on the far left side of this main hall. It takes us to a large dining room, with Barry at the end inspecting something on the wall, and he tells me to go on ahead. When we do, we stumble across one of the most memorable parts of the whole game, the first ever zombie encounter. And why does this face kind of look like moldy yogurt? Was this really supposed to be scary back in 1996? Maybe I'm just spoiled by the hyper-realistic gore of today's games, but this did nothing for me. Although it does give Barry his first chance to prove how awesome he is. Yeah, get him, man. After that, the mansion finally opens up. Barry gives Jill a lockpick since she is the master of unlocking, and we're sent off on our own in search of Wesker and the other missing members of our team. Now, there's another integral gameplay item we can pick up in this room, which means it's time for a separate tangent. For anyone who's ever played any games in this series before, you already know what I'm going to say. The ink ribbons are hands down the worst part of this game, and many others for a matter of fact. There's a reason they were mostly removed from the remakes and more current games. For the uninitiated, the ink ribbons are a type of consumable resource that can be used at any of the various typewriters throughout the game to save your progress. And that there is the problem. If you don't have an ink ribbon to spare, well then sorry, I guess you're out of luck. Can't save. I understand that this is an aspect of this resource management part of the game, but the problem is that it just isn't fun. I once made 2 hours of progress, reaching a big boss, and then proceeded to lose all of that progress because I had wasted my ink ribbons earlier on in the game when I thought they would be more plentiful. This honestly almost made me quit the game, and it's a good thing that they removed them from later titles. Moving past my frustration with the ink ribbons, I made a lot of good progress. I broke a priceless statue, I pissed off a bunch of birds, I learned Joe could play the piano, I got jump scared twice, I got a shotgun and Barry saved my ass once again, I learned how to make drugs, herbs. I got a frickin' bazooka. I poisoned the watering hole. Well, really, it was more like acid. I found a dying squad mate, went to get him anti-venom, came back and found he was dead, and then fought a giant snake. Before finally making it out of the godforsaken mansion. And all of it took me about 40 minutes. Unfortunately, like most Resident Evil games, that initial area really is the best that it gets. The mansion is massive, while still feeling extremely interconnected. Every hallway was suspenseful, as I'm always wary of a monster right around the corner. Every new door felt as if it would open up and reveal the next big secret. The lost puzzle piece that'll finally allow me to proceed deeper into this world of survival horror. And luckily, we do get to come back here, but first, we have to go through the guardhouse. Now, the guardhouse is fine, if not a little nonsensical and ugly. I mean, who would design the entrance to their back rooms, require you to drain a well, and then take an elevator down through that well? And unlike the mansion, which had distinct looking rooms with different wallpapers and decorations, all of the courtyard is this same boring gray rock texture. The guardhouse is just as bad, using the same wooden texture all over the floor and ceiling. I just don't like how it looks, and hopefully it gets better going forward. So we drain the well and take the elevator down, killing some dogs along the way so that we can make it to the guardhouse. I snoop around a little bit, find a strange empty red book, a safe room, and finally go through these important looking red doors at the end of the hall. where I find... Oh shit, spiders. Ugh, I hate spiders, and they don't even make any sense. Like regular zombies, okay. Dog zombies, I can believe it. But giant spiders, why are they even here? And why do they never show up again in these games? Well, maybe they do show up, just in games I haven't played yet. How about you tell me in the comments, do these giant spiders ever show up again and I'm just being stupid? Anyway, after dispatching of the stupid giant spiders, I search around. I found a code and not much else. After all that, the only place left to go is this path with a hole in the floor. And you know, I haven't had a tangent in almost 2 pages, so I think it's about time I tangented about the puzzles. The puzzles in this game are surprisingly great. I mean, they're not big brain 3000 IQ puzzles that require a PhD in theoretical physics to figure out, but for a stupid kid like me, that's perfect. Another classic horror game that I went back and played recently was the original Silent Hill, also on the PlayStation 1. And while that is a pretty good game in its own right, one problem it has is that some of the puzzles are cryptic as hell. I'm someone who prides himself on rarely using guides to get through games unless I'm trophy hunting. But there were quite a few times throughout the first Silent Hill when I just had to look up the answer, such as the piano keys or that stupid zodiac sign puzzle. There was never really a point like this for me in Resident Evil. Most puzzles I could figure out on my own through some basic trial and error, with the only exception being this chemical mixing puzzle, which I later found out was just an optional way to weaken the boss, since Barry will come and help you if you don't solve it. However, this doesn't mean that every aspect of these puzzles is all sunshine and rainbows. A major problem that this game has is the number of instant or near instant death puzzles, where you get one chance and if you fail or make a mistake, you die. This is a problem compounded by the existence of the ink ribbons, meaning that you can't just save before attempting every puzzle. You could make a stupid mistake and lose a lot of progress, which really sucks the fun out of any play session, and doesn't make me eager to come back. But as I said, the puzzles aren't too difficult, so as long as you keep your wits about you, it should all be hunky-dory. Finally getting back to the hole in the floor, if you try to walk over it, then a vine will grab your leg, dealing a little bit of damage, but letting you get by. Now I, in my infinite wisdom, didn't realize that you could simply push a statue over this hole to stop it from grabbing your leg, and thought the damage was a toll to be paid to get by, like an idiot. Anyway, I get past the vine room, run down the hallway, and enter a room full of giant killer bees. Now, I would make fun of these as a ridiculous work of science fiction, but no, I'm pretty sure these actually exist. On an unrelated note, I now keep a can of Raid on me at all times. Anyway, we steal a key from the bees, go back down the hallway, break into a dormitory, find a secret ladder behind a bookshelf, and push some boxes to get to the flooded basement area. Then, when you head to the far wall, we get attacked by sharks! Zombie sharks! Or maybe just regular sharks? I honestly can't tell. I mean, the dogs and the humans were obviously undead, but the spiders? The sharks? The bees? Are they supposed to be zombies, or are they just evil? I don't know. Well, anyway, these sharks are a non-threat, since using a key I picked up earlier, we can easily get into the control room and drain all the basement water, leaving the sharks out to dry. Finally, we can nab the key to the boss room. Now, as I said earlier, there's also this kind of confusing puzzle about mixing chemicals and then pouring it onto the roots of this plant to weaken the boss, but it's optional, so you don't need to worry about it. It gives Barry another chance to be the legend that he is. I unlock the door, put that empty book from earlier into its place, and voila! We can now take on our second boss, a giant zombie plant. Well, no, I guess it's not a zombie. So a giant evil plant. It's pretty easy if you poisoned it. Although a little hard to dodge with your hard tank controls. Wait a moment. I can't believe I've gotten this far into the review without discussing the tank controls. Guess I'll have to do a tangent about that. Basically, tank controls means that you press left and right on your D-pad to turn in that direction, and up and down to move forward and backwards. There's no analog sticks here, at least not in the original controllers, so it can be a little bit clunky, but I love it. The controls really help elevate the tension, unlike the newer games where I can easily outmaneuver most enemies to get away without spending any ammo. With this classic control scheme, I have to really debate if I should risk trying to speed past or just use my precious ammo to conserve health. It's a balancing act, and a damn good one at that. But I digress. I beat the boss, got a key, opened some doors and got another key, that I remember seeing locked for back in the mansion. You know what that means, back to the mansion we go. But first, we have a run-in with everybody's favorite, totally not a villain. Well, we found him, Jill. Task completed. Let's call Barry and get ourselves home. Oh, god damn it. Off he goes again. Guess we're still stuck here after all. I head back to the mansion, and the first thing that greets me is an attack from a hunter zombie. No lie, these guys are tough. But at least it doesn't have an instant kill attack like the bastards from RE3 Remake. So these guys will now spawn all throughout the mansion, along with those goddamn giant spiders, but my bazooka makes quick work of them. I made my way to the first place that I knew I could use that helmet key, which was right above a safe room on the left-hand side of the mansion. I opened the door into a room full of taxidermied animals, and I swear I thought these would all come to life like a scene out of Evil Dead. But alas, no. The first thing I noticed is a note on the table titled Orders. It details how, rather than a coincidence, the STARS team was actually lured into the mansion in order to get combat data on the monsters inside. So it had been a trap. It's almost like someone betrayed us and was evil all along. Maybe even someone on our team. But that's just a hunch. Let's keep going. There's nothing essential in this room, although there is a red gem you can take from the eye of a deer to unlock the Magnum. Yeah, it's a weird game. But as cool as the Magnum is, it doesn't actually help us progress. So instead, I have to go to the door above the staircase on the right-hand side of the building. I open it up, and it's looking pretty good so far. Nice floor tiles. Oh look, there's a piano. And we all know Jill's skill with the piano. Let's see what happens. Oh god, it's happening again. The giant snake. And this time it really is a zombie. It's a good thing I got that Magnum, because now I can just unload into it. And finally watch it melt into the floor. Now, the man, the myth, the legend shows back up. And he's even got a rope for us to use to get down the hole in the floor. Until he drops it by mistake. And then leaves us alone to go and get another one. I had so much faith in you, Barry. Why do you let me down? So now I'm waiting here in the dark for him to come back, which he eventually does. And what's more, he found the passcode to a door from earlier. Alright, Barry, all is forgiven. This code opens up a new portion of the mansion, where I have even more adventures. But I think it's time for a new tangent. This time, about the music. I tried to make a whole video on music before, and looking back, yeah, that video kinda sucked. I just have trouble articulating why exactly it is that I love video game music so much. But I'm gonna try. The music in Resident Evil goes through a variety of stages that help build tension and set the mood. Earlier on, it's a lot more calm and simple, more like ambiance playing softly in the background. But whenever a monster appears, it grows harsh and loud, letting you know there's something to fear just around the corner. As you get deeper, the regular music begins to sound more like the danger music, becoming distorted and throwing in sharp notes to show that the farther you go, the more dangerous every movement is. This contrasts nicely with the safe room theme, which is relaxing and welcoming. A respite from the terror outside. No matter where you are, the safe room will always protect you. Hopefully that wasn't too bad. Now back to the actual game. So I explore around a bit, find a battery and an elevator which takes me down to an underground kitchen area in the basement with a locked door. Going back up the elevator, I can also enter a library of sorts with a secret room hidden behind a bookshelf containing a single disc. That's kind of it in this area, and we hit a dead end. There's not much else to do but follow Jill's advice and use that battery we found earlier on the elevator in the courtyard. It's a good thing she told me this too, because I never would have figured it out. So I plug in the battery, solve a simple puzzle, and finally take a ladder to descend into the caverns. Now the caves under the garden are a really cool location, although it is hard to explain why. It's just very textured feeling. All these different stones, greened with age, put together to hold up this subterranean structure. It's pretty neat, even if it all looks the same. But when I try to explore, we quickly run into Barry, who asks if we want to help him, and the game actually gives us a choice. With a quick Google search, avoiding spoilers of course, I found out that the game actually had multiple endings. So what should I do? Just kidding. Of course I'm going to help you, Barry. You've saved my ass more times than I can count. Then he asks if I want him to go first. But no, Barry. I believe that the one with the bazooka should go first. Not to mention that I have protagonist plot armor. And when he said he'd cover me, he meant it. A hunter drops down behind us, and like the legend he is, Barry saved my ass again. We explore the caves together and eventually find our friend Enrico. But he's hurt bad, and tells us that there's a traitor in our midst. You could even say, an imposter? Wow, that dated this video even more than it already was. Right, anyway, after that he dies. We lose Barry as our traveling companion, although we do find a crank we need for another area. Going to that area, I sit through a ridiculously long cranking scene, just to get chased by a giant boulder and barely escape with my life. What is this, Indiana Jones? This game has gone so far off the deep end, I don't even know what's going on anymore. I found some flame rounds exposed by the boulder moving. I wonder what they're for. Well, other than the giant spider boss in the newly exposed room. I mean, really, I never realized how much the old RE games relied on, like, animal creatures rather than just zombies. I kind of wish they kept it up, because these are a lot more surprising than the different variations of blob monster we get nowadays. After beating the spider, I can cut open some webs, run away from another boulder, collect the next of the disc drives, and finally make it out of these caves. It was short and sweet, just how I like it. Plus, we got to spend a lot of time with Barry. Now I've just got to solve some convoluted puzzles to get some books, which have medals in them for some reason. We can then use those medals to reveal a secret passageway underneath the water fountain. I don't even know why I'm surprised anymore. Anyway, here we go. Entering the final stretch of the game in the secret underground labs. I head downstairs, finding another one of those MO discs before delving deeper under the mansion. I find a letter in one room. A man named John was infected and asked that his friend Ada escape this place and reveal what happened here to the world. It seems Ada had failed, so now it's our job to carry on that mission. It also gave us a password we can use on a computer in the next room over. This computer gives us our first real look at the corporation behind all this nonsense, Umbrella, as well as allowing us to unlock some of the other doors in the building. Now, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit, because I'm running out of time, and going forward this is mostly the same. I run around, solve some puzzles, shoot some zombies, all standard RE stuff. I even found a slideshow about all of Umbrella's messed up bioweapons. And on the R&D staff slide, Wesker? Are you telling me he was evil this whole time? Well, anyway, I run around some more, move some boxes, climbed through an air duct, got lost in a maze, turned on the power, fought these weird wall climbing freaks, I think are called chimeras. It all went nice and smooth. Then I ran to the elevator, prepared for whatever might come next. When suddenly, my man was back, baby. Aw, Barry, how I've missed you. So we head down together and find Wesker, the secretive, not so secretly double-crosser himself. But then Barry betrays us too? God damn it, I thought you were the good one. How dare you abandon me in my time of need. Now I have to sit here and listen to Wesker's boring monologue alone? But wait, Barry, you legend, he came back to save me. All that's left now is to take on the tyrant, together. Barry, no! That's it, this fuck going down. I did it for you, Barry. Wait, he's still alive! Woo! Now we have to run for our lives because Wesker escaped and activated the lab's self-destruct. But real quick, I gotta do something. Using the decoded passwords on the MO discs from earlier, I'm able to open a door that leads me to finding Chris locked up in a cell. Huh, I guess there was some overlap after all. Now it's a mad dash to the exit. With only 3 minutes remaining, Chris and Barry stay behind to cover me while I take the elevator and escape to the helipad. I shot a flare to attract the helicopter, but it also summoned some unwanted attention from the goddamn tyrant, back from the dead. With only a minute left on the clock and this rocket launcher Brad so kindly provided for me, it's time to kick his ass. And with that, we all escape, and the game fades to the credits with this totally kick-ass end credits song. So what are my final thoughts? I guess they would be that I finally understand why this game became a cultural sensation that many look back fondly on. Even if it doesn't look that great stacked up against the games of our current times, the old limited aesthetic definitely has its own charm that lots of indie devs have been trying to replicate even to this day. While I feel that some of the systems in the game are quite barbaric by today's standards, I can still appreciate how this game set up for the development of one of my favorite video game series. I would without question recommend this game to anyone who is already a fan of the series. However, I wouldn't consider it a good starting point for new players. Granted, I've never finished the remake of 1 that may have made this game totally invalid. Either way, it's one hell of a ride. If you've gotten this far, then I truly thank you. This is my longest video to date, and I put a lot of time and effort into making sure it was just the way I wanted it. If you've enjoyed, then please leave a like and a comment on your opinions of the RE series. If you didn't enjoy it, please leave a comment telling me what I can do better. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time, bro chochos.